Hello! Hello! Chapter 47! Rocked! Oh, Gabby! Gabby! Did you get my picture today? Hello, Jensen B, representing. I miss you. Gabby, I'm so excited that you and your sister are going to be here. It's good to see you. We start in 2 minutes. 1 minute, 45 seconds, actually. Oh, Gabby, it's so good to see you. I'm so glad that you've joined us. Have you read Tale of Despereaux? You may need to go back and listen to the whole thing because you are going to be experiencing the very end of the book. Oh, this is so good too. Oh my gosh, it's gonna see you. And a new one. She's gonna be joining us for the book 4 starting tomorrow. Woo! Ladies and gentlemen, you have 45 seconds. It is good to see you. Anybody else present that wants to say something? Jensen, such a cute picture today of Sammy. Oh my gosh, so cute. Oh, Meg, you came. Yay! You don't want to miss the end of this. Oh my gosh, it's going to be so good. So ladies and gentlemen, good day. It is a blessing to see you. It is about 40 seconds from the moment that I will kind of begin. But I want to say that that was a great song by the great band Fish called Split Open and Melt. Probably a little ear piercing for some of you, but beyond that, I will tell you the writing is absolutely brilliant and the music is so good. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, John O'Keefe here. It is 3 o'clock in the PM, 3:30 in the PM here in Atlanta. Absolutely splendiferous, beautiful weekend down here. I hope everybody was outside just playing like crazy and enjoying themselves. If you are in Minnesota, I was looking at the Eagle Cam. If you haven't checked out the MNDNR Eagle Cam, you should. I sat back with Miss Rainey and we watched 2 baby eaglets, I think is what they call them, and then one of the parents just dealing with some horrendous winds and some rain. So I think that you guys may have gotten a little stuck on that. Washingtonians, you guys had some hot days, but I am super, super happy, most importantly, that we're all here together. Thank you and welcome, Olympia and George in Washington State. We've got Minnesota, the O'Keefes listening in Minnesota. We have some Coloradians, and we have a huge representation from down here in Georgia. Whoop, whoop. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, welcome, welcome. It is great to see you. So this trip that we have been on in the castle of the Princess P and the King Philip and the deep downs with the old Gregory, the jailer, and Roscuro, the light and dark lover of rats, the Botticelli, the other Botticelli Rimorso, who is always looking for wonderful suffering. We have Miggery Sao, who's seemingly being brought into the middle of a conundrum. Ooh, good word, conundrum. It's like all of our characters are starting to come to this moment. And of course, we have our main character, Despereaux, who has in many ways adopted the idea that he is a knight in shining armor. He is able to potentially save the princess. He's been wondering whether or not there will be a happy ending. And today, ladies and gentlemen, you are going to make that decision. Whether Despereaux does save the pea or whether Despereaux loses himself in the deep downs. He's got only a few things with him. He's got his wits and his smarts. He's got a spool of red thread that is tied around his waist so that he doesn't get lost in the deep downs of the dungeon. He's got a needle for a sword, and he has a mission. He has a goal, and that is where we begin today. As always, after a weekend of taking a break from reading, which isn't the case for me, but since Friday I have not read Despereaux, I want to make sure that we start right where we left off. And if I am not mistaken, this is Botticelli Rimorso, who has found the spool of red thread, who has Despereaux in his face and is wondering, what in the world is going on? This is what states as the last part. He put his nose up in the air. He sniffed. He sniffed again. I smell. Could it be? Yes, most definitely it is. Soup. How strange. He sniffed some more. And I smell tears. Human tears. Delightful. And I also detect the smell. He put his nose higher still into the air and took a giant whiff of flour and oil. Remember, Despereaux had fallen into the flour of oil. Oh, it all. What do I smell? The blood of a mouse. Unmistakably mouse blood, yes. Exactly, mouse. Botticelli looked down at the spool of thread and smiled. He gave it a gentle push with one paw. Red thread, yes. Exactly. Just when you think that life in the dungeon cannot get any better, a mouse arrives. Chapter 47. No choice. Despereaux stood before Botticelli, trembling on the steps. The thread was most definitely gone. He could not hear it. He could not see it. He should have tied it to himself when he had the chance, but it was too late now. Pause. I had thought that he had already tied it onto him, and now he didn't. Despereaux's dire situation suddenly became quite clear to him. He was a 2-ounce mouse, alone in the dark, twisting dungeon full of rats. He had nothing but a sewing needle with which to defend himself. He had to find a princess, and he had to save her once he found her. It's impossible, he said to the darkness. I can't do it. He stood very still. I'll go back, he said, but he didn't move. I have to go back. He took a step backward. But I can't go back. I don't have a choice. I have no choice. He took one step forward and then another. No choice. His heart beat out of him as he went down the stairs. No choice. No choice. No choice. Rule of 3. Remember? I've always talked about that rule of 3. So important. At the bottom of the stairs, the rat Botticelli was still waiting. And when Despereaux stepped from the last stair onto the dungeon floor, Botticelli called out to him as if he were a long-lost friend. Ah, said Botticelli, there you are. Exactly. I've been waiting for you. Despereaux saw the dark shape of a rat, that thing that he had feared and dreaded for so long, finally step out of the gloom and came to greet him. Welcome, welcome, said Botticelli. Despereaux put his paw on the needle. Ah, said Botticelli, you are armed. How charming. He put his paw up into the air. I surrender. Oh, yes, certainly, exactly. I surrender. I, said Despereaux. Yes, said Botticelli. You. He took the locket from around his neck and he began to swing it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Please go on, he said. I don't want to hurt you, said Despereaux. I just need to get by you. I am on a quest. Really, said Botticelli. How extraordinary. A mouse on a quest. Back and forth went the locket. A quest. For what? A quest to save the princess. Ah, the princess, said Botticelli. The princess, the princess. Everything seems to be about the princess these days. The king's men were down here searching for her, you know. They didn't find her. That goes without saying. But now a mouse has arrived. and he is on a quest to save the princess. Yes, said Despereaux. He took a step to the left of Botticelli. How inspiring, said Botticelli. He lazily took a step to his right, blocking Despereaux's way. Why the hurry, little friend? Because, said Despereaux, I have to. Yes, you have to save the princess, exactly. But before you save her, you must find her, correct? Yes, said Despereaux. What if, said Botticelli, what if I told you that I know exactly where the princess is? What if I told you that I could take you right directly to her? Said Despereaux. His voice shook. His paw on the needle trembled. Why would you do that? Why would I do that? Why would I help you? Why? To be of service, to do my part for humanity, to aid in the saving of a princess. But you're a rat, supplied Botticelli. Yes, I am a rat. And I see by your trembling that the greatly exaggerated rumors of our evil nature have reached your own oversized ears. Yes, said Despereaux. If, said Botticelli, swinging the locket back and forth, if you allow me to be of assistance, you will be doing me a tremendous favor. Not only can I do a good deed for you and for the princess, but my actions will help to dispel this terrible myth of evil that seems to surround rats everywhere. Will you let me assist you? Will you let me assist myself and all of my kind? Pause. How many of you right now say it's time to allow Botticelli to help? He says he knows exactly where the princess is. He also says that he is trying to overcome something that his entire rat community, generations of rats, have proven that rats are evil. But in this case, on page 243, Despereaux is desperate to be able to try to find the princess. And so we sit and wait and wonder. Reader, was it a trick? Of course it was. Botticelli did not want to be of service. Far from it. You know what Botticelli wanted. He wanted others to suffer. Specifically, he wanted this small mouse to suffer. How best to do that? Why, take him right directly to what he wanted, the princess. Let him see what his heart desired, and then, and only then, faced with what he loved, would Despereaux die. And that, at the end of it all, how tasty the mouse would be, seasoned with hope and tears and flour and oil and thwarted love. These were the things that were going on in Botticelli's head. My name, little friend, is Botticelli Rimorso, and you may trust me. You must trust me. Will you tell me your name? Despereaux. Despereaux Tilling. Despereaux Tilling, take your paw from your weapon. Come with me. Follow me into the darkness. Despereaux stared at him. Come, said Botticelli. Let go of your needle. Take hold of my tail. I will lead you to the princess. I promise. What, reader, in your experience, is the promise of a rat worth? That's right. Zip. Zero. Nada. Goose eggs. But I must ask you this question, reader, as well. What else was there for Despereaux to hold on to? You're right again. Nada. Zilch. Zip. Nothing. And so, the mouse reached out and took hold of the rat's tail. Chapter 48. On the tail of a rat. Have you ever had hold of the tail of a rat? At best, it is unpleasant, scaly, cold, similar to holding on to a small, narrow snake. At worst, when you are dependent upon a rat for your survival, and when a part of you is certain that you are being led nowhere except to your death, it is a hideous sensation, indeed, to have nothing but a rat's tail to cling on to. Nonetheless, Despereaux held on to Botticelli Rimorso, and the rat led him deeper, deeper, and deeper still into the dungeon. Despereaux's eyes had, by this point, adjusted quite well to the darkness, though it would have been better if they had not, for the things he saw made Despereaux shiver deeply. What did he see? Pause. While I read this out loud to you, reader, I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to imagine what Kate DiCamillo, the author, is going to give you to write from. Okay? I want you to listen to this. Okay, so what did Despereaux Tilling see? He saw that the floor of the dungeon was littered with tufts of fur, knots of red thread, and the skeletons of mice. Everywhere there were tiny white bones glowing in the darkness. And he saw in the dungeon tunnels through which Botticelli led him the bones of human beings too, grinning skulls and delicate finger bones rising up out of the darkness and pointing towards some truth best left unspoken. Despereaux closed his eyes, but it didn't help. He saw, as if his eyes were still open wide, the bones, the tufts of hair, the knots of thread, the despair. Did you see it? Were you able to see the terribleness of this dungeon? Has the author done a nice job of painting that picture? If you were the author, would you have given anything else? Because your imagination probably built around her picture, didn't it? It's beautiful. Exactly. Botticelli laughed as he negotiated the twists and turns. Oh, yes, exactly. If what was in front of Despereaux was too horrible to contemplate, what followed behind him was perhaps even worse. Rats. A happy, hungry, vengeful parade of rats. Their noses up in the air. Sniff, sniff, sniffing. Mouse, sang one of the rats joyfully. Oh, yes, mouse, agreed another, but something else too. Soup, called the rat. Yes, soup. The others agreed. Blood, sang a rat. Blood. They all agreed together. And then they sang, here, mousy, 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 here, little mousy. Botticelli called out to the other rats. Mine, he said. This little treasure is all mine, gentlemen and ladies. Please, I beg you, do not infringe on my discovery. Mr. Remorso, said Despereaux. He turned and looked behind him and saw the rats, their red eyes and their smiling mouths. He closed his eyes again. He kept them closed. Mr. Remorso, he shouted. Yes, said Botticelli. Mr. Remorso, said Despereaux. And he was crying now. He couldn't help it. Please, the princess. Tears, shouted the rats. We smell tears, mousy, we do. Please, said Despereaux. Little friend, said Botticelli. Little Despereaux Tilling, I promise you, and I will keep that promise. The rat stopped. Look ahead of you, he said. What do you see? Despereaux opened his eyes. Light, he said. Light. Exactly, said Botticelli. Light. Chapter 49. What do you want, Miggery Sow? And in comes Miggery. We have not seen Roscuro nor Miggery for quite some time. The title states that we will see her. And who is connected to Miggery Sow? The Princess P. Again, reader, we must go backward. Dang. Before we go forward, we must consider for a brief moment what had occurred with the rat and the serving girl and the princess down in the dungeon before Despereaux made his way to them. What happened was this. Roscuro had led the P and Mig deep into the dungeon to a hidden chamber, and there he directed Mig to put the princess in chains. Go, said Mig. She's going to have a hard time learning her lessons if she's all chained up like. Do as I say, Roscuro said. Maybe, said Mig, before I lock her up, her and me could switch outfits, so we could start in already with her being me and me being a princess. Oh, yes, said Roscuro, certainly. A wonderful idea, Miss Miggery. Princess, take off your crown and give it to the serving girl. The P sighed and took off her crown and handed it to Mig. And Mig put it on, and it slid immediately right down her small, remember, we did say that she had a very small head, and came to rest quite painfully on her poor, abused cauliflower ears. Oh, it's a biggish thing, she said, painful like. Well, well, said Roscuro. How do I look? Meg asked, smiling at him. Ridiculous, he said. Laughable. Meg stood, blinking back tears. You mean I don't look like a princess? She said to the rat. I mean, said Rescue, you will never look like a princess, no matter how big a crown you put on your tiny little head. You look exactly like the fool you are and always will be. Now make yourself useful and chain the princess up. Dress-up time is over. Now, if you are anybody who is a reader in the O'Keeffe Class of Excellence, what was the major mistake that Rescue just did? Have you thought about it? Are you thinking about it? The major mistake. No, I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to see if you can put it together. Dress-up time is over. Meg sniffed, wiped at her eyes, and then bent to look at the pile of chains and locks on the floor. And now, princess, he said, I'm afraid that the time for your truth has arrived. Phew, pardon me. I will now tell you what your future holds. As you consigned me to darkness, so I consign you too to a life spent in this dungeon. Meg looked up. Ain't she going upstairs to be a serving maid? No, said Rescuro. Ain't I going to be a princess then? No, said Rescuro. But I want to be a princess. No one, said Rescuro, cares what you want, girl. As you know, reader, Megari Sao had heard this sentence expressed many times in her short life, but now in the dungeon, it hit her full force. The rat was right. No one cared what she wanted. No one had ever cared what Megari Sao wanted, and perhaps, worst of all, no one ever would. I want, cried Meg. Shh, said the princess. Shut up, said the rat. I want, sobbed Meg. I want. What do you want, Meg? The princess said softly. Hey, shouted Meg. What do you want, Megari Sao? The princess shouted. Don't ask her that, said Rescue. Shut up, shut up. But it was too late. The words had already been said. The question at last has already been asked. The world stopped spinning and all of creation held its breath, waiting to hear what it was that Megari Sao wanted. I want, said Meg. Yes, shouted P. I want my ma, cried Meg into the silent, waiting world. I want my mama. Oh, said the princess. She held out her hand to Meg. Meg took hold of it. I want my mother too, said Princess softly, and she squeezed Meg's hand. Stop it, shouted Rescuro. Chain her up! Chain her up! Go, said Meg. I ain't going to do it. You can't make me do it. I got the knife, don't I? She took the knife and held it up. If you have any sense at all, said Rescuro, and I heartily doubt that you do, you will not use that instrument upon me. Without me, you will never find your way out of the dungeon, and you will starve to death here, or worse. Go, said Meg. Then lead us out now, or I'll chop you up into little rat bits. No, said Rescuro. The princess shall stay here in the darkness, and you, Meg, will stay with her. But I want to go upstairs, said Meg. I'm afraid that we are stuck here, Meg, shouted the princess. Unless the rat has a change of heart and decides to lead us out. There will be no changes of heart, said Rescuro. None. Go, said Meg. She lowered the knife. And so, the rat and the princess and the serving girl sat together in the dungeon as, outside the castle, the sun rose and moved through the sky and sank to the earth again, and night fell. They sat together until the candle had burned out and another one had to be lit. They sat together in the dungeon. They sat and sat and sat. And reader, truthfully, they might be sitting there still if a mouse had not arrived. Chapter 50, in which the princess says his name. Princess! Despereaux shouted. Princess! I have come to save you! The Princess P heard her name. She looked up. Despereaux, she whispered. And then she shouted it. Despereaux! Reader, nothing is sweeter in this sad world than the sound of someone you love calling your name. Do you know what I mean? Who is that person who has called your name recently, who has relieved your heart of any loneliness that you have? Oh, I can't wait. I hope it's been just right, like 10 minutes before we got together. But if not, they're there. We're all here for you. Nothing is sweeter in this sad world than the sound of someone you love calling your name. Nothing. For Despereaux, the sound was worth everything. His lost tail, his trip to the dungeon and back out of it and back into it again. He ran toward the princess, but Despereaux, baring his teeth, blocked the mouse's way. The princess cried, "Oh no, Rat, please, don't hurt him. He's my friend." Meg said, "Don't worry, princess. I'll save the Macy." She took the kitchen knife. She aimed to cut off the rat's head, but she missed her mark. "Whoopsie," said Marie-Sal. That's it. It's the end of the book. Oh, I guess you're going to have to read it. I'm just kidding. Chapter 51. Sorry, I just had to play a little bit. "No!" screamed Despereaux. He turned to look at where his tail had been, and as he did, Despereaux drew his needle and placed the sharp tip of it right where the rat's heart should be. "Don't move," said Despereaux. "I will kill you." "Ha ha ha!" Botticelli laughed from the sidelines. "Exactly." He slapped his tail on the floor in approval. "Absolutely delightful. A mouse is going to kill a rat. Oh, all of this is much better than I anticipated. I love it when mice come to the dungeon." "Let me see," said the other rats, pushing and shoving. "Stand back," Botticelli told them, still laughing. "Let the mouse do his work." Despereaux held the trembling needle against Despereaux's heart. The mouse knew that as a knight, it was his duty to protect the princess. But would killing the rat really make the darkness go away? Despereaux bowed his head ever so slightly, and as he did so, his whiskers brushed against the rat's nose. Despereaux sniffed. What is that I smell?" he asked. "Mousy blood," shouted one rat. "Blood and bones," shouted another. "You're smelling tears," said Botticelli. "Tears and thwarted love." "Exactly," said Despereaux. "And yet there's something else." He sniffed again, and the smell of soup crashed through his soul like a great wave, bringing with it the memory of light, the chandelier, the music, the laughter, everything, all things that were not, would never, could never be available to him as a rat. "Soup," moaned Despereaux, and he began to cry. "Boo!" shouted Botticelli. Hissed the other rats. "Kill me," said Despereaux. He fell down before Despereaux and raised his hands. "It will never work. All I wanted was some light. That is why I brought the princess here, really, just for some beauty, some light of my own." "Please," shouted Botticelli, "do kill him. He is a miserable excuse for a rat." "No, Despereaux," said Princess. "Don't kill him." Despereaux lowered his needle. He turned and looked at P. "Boo!" shouted again. "Kill him! Kill him! All this goodness is making me sick. I've lost my appetite." "Go!" shouted Meg, waving her knife. "I'll kill him." "No, wait," said the princess. "Despereaux," she said to the rat. "What?" he said. Tears were falling out of his eyes, creeping down his whiskers and dripping onto the dungeon floor. And then the princess took a deep breath and put a hand over her heart. I think, reader, that what she was feeling, the same thing that Despereaux had felt when he was faced with his father begging him for forgiveness. That is, P was aware suddenly of how fragile her heart was, how much darkness was deep inside it, fighting always with the light. She did not like the rat. She would never like the rat, but she knew what she must do to save her own heart. And so, here are the words that the princess spoke to her enemy. She said, "Despereaux, would you like some soup?" The rat sniffed. "Don't torment me," he said. "I promise you," said the princess, "that if you lead us out of this dungeon, I will get cook to make you some soup, and you can eat it." "Yeah," shouted another. "Hand over the mouse." "Who would want him now?" said Botticelli. "The flavor of him will be ruined." Oh, that forgiveness and goodness. I, for one, am leaving. Soup in the banquet hall? Risquiro asked the princess. Yes, said P. Really? Truly, I promise. Go, shouted Meg. Soup is illegal. But soup is good, said Despereaux. Yes, said the P, isn't it? The princess bent down before the mouse. You are my knight. You are my knight, she said to him, with a shining needle. And I am so glad that you found me. Let's go upstairs. Let's eat some soup. And reader. They did. Chapter 52. Happily ever after. Do I need to even say anything else? That's all I need, right? Happily ever after. That's all we have. But the question you want answered, I know, is, did the princess and the mousie live happily ever after? Yes and no. What of Risquiro? Did he live happily ever after? Well, the Princess P gave him free access to the upstairs of the castle, and he was allowed to go back and forth from the darkness of the dungeon to the light of the upstairs, but alas, he never really belonged in either place. That's a sad fate, everyone. I'm afraid of those whose hearts break and then mend in crooked ways like Risquiro's. But the rat, in seeking forgiveness, did manage to shed some small light, some happiness into another life. How? Risquiro, reader, told the princess about the prisoner who had once owned a red tablecloth. And the princess saw to it that the prisoner was released. And Risquiro led the man up and out of the dungeon and to his daughter, Miggery Sal. Mig, as you might have guessed, did not get to be a princess, but her father, to atone for what he had done, treated her like one for the rest of his days. And what of Despereaux? Did he live happily ever after? Well, he did not marry the princess. If that is what you mean by happily ever after, even in a world as strange as this one that you've been hearing about, a mouse and a princess, they can't marry. But reader, they can be very good friends. And they were. Together they had many adventures. Those adventures, however, are another story for later. And this story, I'm afraid, must now draw to a close. But before you leave, reader, imagine this. Imagine an adoring king and a glowing princess, a serving girl with a crown on her head and a rat with a spoon on his, all gathered around a table in a banquet hall. In the very middle of the table, there was a great kettle of soup sitting. In a place of honor, right next to the princess, is a very small mouse with very big ears. And peeking out from behind a dusty velvet curtain, looking in amazement at the scene before them, are 4 other mice. Mon Dieu, look, says Antoinette. He lives, and he seems such the happy mouse. Forgiven, said Lester. Cripes, said Furlough. Unbelievable. Just so, said the threadmaster Hovis, smiling. Just so. And reader, it is just so, isn't it? The Tale of Despereaux. Sometimes, after the very last page of a book, they give you more. If, reader, you find that there is more, there's a reason why it's there. It's not to skip. It's there to help you understand something deeper. And this says this at the very top. Coda, capital C-O-D-A. Not quite sure what the word coda is. Maybe it's like well, let's find out. What is a coda? Do you remember when Despereaux was in the dungeon, cupped in Gregory the jailer's hand, whispering a story in the old man's ear? I would like it very much if you thought of me as a mouse telling you a story, this story, with the whole of my heart, whispering it in your ear, in order to save myself from the darkness and to save you from the darkness too. Stories are light, Gregory the jailer told Despereaux. Reader, I hope that you have found some light in our reading. Kate D. Camillo. The end. What a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful book. The Tale of Despereaux. Finished today, 5/18/20. Isn't it beautiful? Ah! Interesting for you to say that, Mr. Luau. I like that you're bringing in your protest voices. I will tell you that that is so true. Paid for by the lives of our soldiers. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the end. And I want to ask you right now, was it the ending that you hoped for? Was it what you wished? Is there something that you would have done differently if it was your story? Did you like the ending? Did you appreciate how Roscuro ended up getting some care, some love? Did you appreciate Botticelli just giving up and leaving? My giant question is if there were 100 rats, there's no way a princess and a mouse and a rat and Miggery would probably be able to do much of anything. I mean, they could have had their revenge. So that was one of my little pieces of wonder. It got very scary when there was all those mice waiting behind Botticelli. That made me a little spooked. But beyond that, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say to you, congratulations. You have finished another book if you have been with us on a daily basis. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate the time that we spend together. Tomorrow, we start a brand new book. Tomorrow, we begin a brand new book. Mag, you were here every day during this reading. Thank you so very much. Thank you. I want to thank Jensen. I want to thank Gabri. I want to thank Mr. Luau, who would show up and then go and then show up. Hopefully you watched all of them. I can't stop but thank Olivia and George out in Washington. I know that I have other friends out there. I have family, the O'Keefes out in the Dakotas. I want to say thank you so much for coming. Sean Brown, Brian F., who else? JP showed up often. Abby McDaniel showed up often. I just want to say thank you to everybody who joined us on this. And if I forgot and overlooked who you are, it's not because I don't want to say thank you to you too, but I want to say thank you so much for another great book. In the last 9 weeks, I have finished Night Divided. We started and finished Where the Red Fern Grows. We've started and we have finished The Tale of Despereaux. It's amazing. Every couple weeks, you should be reading a book. That's your goal. A half an hour to 40 minutes every day makes you stronger. Tomorrow, I have 2 books in mind. This one kind of snuck up on me. So I have 2 amazing books in mind, and I'm going to see which one chooses itself for tomorrow. But until next time, tomorrow that is, I ask for you to join us. I ask for you to play with us and continue on this great adventure with us. I will say thank you to the Gargoyle, who has been to 2 readings. I want to thank the Eggman, who joined us for this reading. Hopefully he'll join us again. And I would like to introduce you to Mardi Gras Head over there. She'll probably be coming along with us on this next trip. She said that she likes both of the books that I've been thinking about. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. I love you. Remember that today is the only today that you have. So make it the absolute best possible today that you can. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for allowing me the privilege of reading. And I can't wait to see you again tomorrow. I love you. I love you. I love you. And as always, get out of here.